Hi team, and welcome back to our Introduction to Ancient Egypt series of printables and mini lessons. This video will serve as a summary and conclusion to this series, focusing on the death of Cleopatra and the disappearance of ancient Egypt. We started the series talking about the fact that ancient Egypt was an ancient civilization that no longer exists, and that its great monuments had created a mystery for all modern people interested in history in the form of the pyramids of Giza. It was this mystery that led Napoleon to bring scientists and historians with him on his expedition to Egypt in his attempt to copy Alexander the Great and conquering it, and eventually, as he imagined, the whole world. Because of Napoleon's quest, the Rosetta Stone was discovered in 1799, and eventually translated by Jean-François Champollion. But only in 1922 did ancient Egypt achieve celebrity status as an ancient culture with the discovery of the tomb of King Tut by Howard Carter. This magnificent discovery made Egyptology into one of the favorite subjects of students of history everywhere. Thanks to the amount of energy that was poured into understanding ancient Egypt, we have learned that its story begins around 3000 BC with the unification of Upper and Lower Egypt by the king that we have called Menes Narmer, the first pharaoh. Once Egypt was unified, the pharaohs became part of a culture filled with exotic beliefs in their own gods, including the pharaohs themselves. The pharaohs were even able to have massive tombs erected for them with an effort of armies of slaves and laborers that is hard to imagine even today, leaving many wondering how they actually did it. During the age of pyramids, the designs of pyramids continued to grow until the peak of the period, around 2500 BC, with the building of the pyramids of Giza. Strangely, however, pyramid building stopped completely after about 500 years, and the Egyptians never built pyramids again. Instead, as we now know, the pharaohs began to hide their tombs, as in the Valley of the Kings. One reason why Egypt changed as a culture is that it began to collide with other cultures such as the Hittites, which we learned about in Lesson 6. The Egyptian Empire and the Hittites collided at the Battle of Kadesh, which is very important for students of history because it shows us how historians must work to combine different versions of history in order to put the story together properly. What followed was domination of Egypt by Mesopotamia, another of the most ancient cultures of the world from the nearby region between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, which is today mainly the country of Iraq. Mesopotamia was home to a succession of cultures such as the Babylonians, including the famous king Hammurabi, the Assyrians, and eventually the Persians from nearby Iran. When the Persians conquered the Egyptians and tried to conquer the Greeks too, they triggered the beginning of the end for Egypt. The Macedonian Greek commander Alexander the Great got his revenge on Persia for attacking Greece and conquered Egypt, also circa 332 BC, as part of his great quest to build the largest empire in the history of the world. This, as we learned, is why the Greek language is found on the Rosetta Stone. All its pharaohs after that, including the last pharaoh, Cleopatra, were Greeks. Which brings us to the dramatic conclusion of the story, the death of Cleopatra in 30 BC. As we saw last time, Cleopatra was locked in a struggle for power with her own brother at the same time as Julius Caesar was trying to take over Rome. The death of Caesar led Cleopatra to become an ally of Mark Antony, one of Caesar's previous supporters, only for both to be defeated by Caesar's nephew Octavian, who became the first Roman emperor. Unable to accept becoming a slave of Octavian, Cleopatra decided to kill herself. In a special bonus lesson of History Through Art, we'll look at a painting, or more than one perhaps, about the death of Cleopatra, who chose to be bitten by a poisonous snake. After this, Egypt simply became a part of Rome. For perhaps 400 years, this meant that Egypt began to slowly disappear until two dramatic waves of change washed away ancient Egypt for good. The first was the rise of Christianity in the Roman Empire. As we will talk about in an upcoming series on ancient Rome, the Christians were at first persecuted in Rome, but once they became the rulers of Rome themselves, they turned the tables and destroyed those who had attacked them. Christianity became the only legal religion in the Roman Empire, including in Egypt. But this change did not last in Egypt. About 150 years later, a new religion, Islam, arose in Arabia, next door to Egypt. And through a great wave of jihad, religious conquest, the Muslims took over Egypt. These people also did not care about previous cultures, and the ancient culture of the pharaohs disappeared once and for all. But historians don't let the past disappear. So here we are today, learning about the world we live in, and we can now know that it is a world that includes a great and mysterious civilization that once built fantastic monuments and lived in a way that still amazes and fascinates us. I hope you enjoyed this Anchor Fact series of mini lessons and printables on ancient Egypt. And I look forward to talking with you again in our next series on Greece and Rome. Bye for now.